going on, Only Playbook fans? We're back. Week 13 is over. One more week before playoffs start, and we all had to be on this podcast because playoffs are so close to coming up. A lot to talk about. Some people are sitting pretty, some people not so pretty. We'll discuss it. Full house. Shishot, Shovit. I'll start with you, Shishot. You haven't been on the podcast in what seems like 3 years. How you feel? How you feeling?
Oh, I feel good, man. I feel good. Honestly, I'm a little bored because when you don't make much changes to your team, you're just like sitting there, so you're just rolling out the same team every week. So it's a little boring on our league, especially because there's no concerns of not making the playoffs. But my other leagues, shit's on fire right now. I would drop from 2 to 6, and like I could go back up to 1. So it's like it's gonna be a wild week. It's gonna be a wild week.
You know, I get that because I'm in that position where I'm making a lot of changes. And I was thinking to myself yesterday, I was like, is this the most fun I've had in fantasy football? But I'm like, you know what? This happens every year. Every year we get into this point in playoff times, and I'm like scrambling, trying to get the right players. So every year is fun.
It's funny. I think all of our other leagues are scrambling. I'm in a very similar situation as well. I am fifth spot, and I'm 6-7. I'm under 500, but I'm in the playoffs right now because the league is top heavy. But what's crazy is my team is pretty good. And I remember I sent you guys my lineup. I was playing against the three-headed juggernaut, Tyreek, Hurts, and CMC, and my team started off really well. Had I constructed the perfect lineup, I had Puka on my bench and Mixon on my bench, I would have scored 150.36 points, and I still would have lost. So that tells you how stacked Jake's team is, and like they completely performed up to par. So it's a brutal week, but you know, as long as you can get into the playoffs, it's a little bit different because any given Sunday, your team can play and another team can underperform. So lots to talk about. Let's get into the action, guys. Let's kick it off with the rundown. Thursday night football. Finally, we were treated to a good matchup. Seahawks at Cowboys in Dallas. We thought the defense was going to dominate, but the Seahawks offense actually showed up. 41-35. Cowboys do win this game, but the Seahawks covered the 9.5 point spread over 47.5 cashes. A lot of offense. Nobody punted the football. Why were there no punts?
Dude,
yeah.
I'm assuming the punt over is to me because I have punts in all caps written down. But yeah, no punts. It's amazing, right? That's huge for somebody that owns stock in the Cowboys offense. So having CeeDee Lamb, who's been wide receiver 1 since week 6, by the way, is huge because now he's running with the ball, he's receiving the ball, and it just all things are firing on that cylinder. But how long is that going to last? How often are they going to be scoring 40 points? Because there's a lot of mouths to feed in the land of the Cowboys. So, you know, I don't expect this to go all the way till the end of the season, but a couple more weeks is very possible with the amount of targets he's getting. But my enjoyment here is watching the Cowboys fans just hate each other for whatever reason. They're winning and they still hate each other, and they're losing, they hate each other. It all relies on the Dak theory. No matter how good he's playing, it's always like, oh, let's wait for the NFC Championship game. But you're like, wait, you're gonna make your decision based on the NFC Championship game, which rarely anybody ever gets to. But when they do get to, it's, you know, you can make a fair evaluation. But right now, Dak is playing MVP caliber. I think as far as fantasy goes, I would take Josh Allen, and I would probably not take anybody else over Dak Prescott.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. I found him in free agency in my other league, early season struggles, and I think the last 6 or 7 games he's been absolutely unreal. No reason to believe that's not going to continue because the schedule is pretty favorable for them. They still play Philly. Philly, you can pass all over. They got Buffalo, who's fighting for the playoffs, but you can throw all over them. Miami, a juggernaut, and then Detroit, who I think we're seeing is one of the worst defenses in football. So a lot of offenses can click against Detroit, and that is a Week 17 matchup for the Cowboys. So just imagine you're a Dak owner, a Pollard owner, a CeeDee Lamb owner, even a Ferguson owner, and your championship matchup is against the Detroit defense. You're going to feel pretty good about yourself there. Ferguson, I wanted to highlight 6 for 77 and a touchdown on 8 targets. He's tight end 4 on the week, tight end 8 on the season. I already mentioned the schedule, so I think he's a good tight end to have heading into the playoffs. Shovit, talk about the run game and the Seahawks side.
Yeah, I will. But first, I wanted to say that this is going to be interesting because when we get to the NFC Championship, we'll really see what Dallas is about. Because this was the first time they beat a team that is over 500 all year. So the Seahawks were 6-5. So we'll see how for real they are. But yeah, I want to talk about the Seahawks. Big injury of note. Charbonnet, who was the lead back in this game, finally gets into the end zone, had a pretty decent game, but he left due to a knee injury. Now, Kenneth Walker is supposed to come back. He's trending in the right direction. But if both running backs are out, then DJ Dallas is the guy that's going to take that lead role responsibility. And he's the guy that you need to just kind of follow the news and keep in track of to see if DJ Dallas is going to be a spot start in front of these guys.
Yeah, we've seen spot starts for DJ Dallas, I think maybe last year a couple of times, and they weren't pretty. Obviously, heading into playoffs, if you're a Walker or a Charbonnet owner and like you need an immediate replacement, certainly. But we'll talk about other games, and I think there are other opportunities that if push comes to shove and DJ Dallas is your option, maybe you can look elsewhere. But no, we'll definitely talk more about it. But no, the Cowboys win a big game. I thought, this was a good matchup for their defense. So I think the one place fantasy wise you're not happy about is if you're a Dallas Cowboys defense owner. I think they got -1 point. So not great, but offense clicking. Nothing is leading me to believe that it's not going to continue to click. First game on Sunday, the Colts and Texans played in Tennessee. Colts win this game 31-28 in overtime. A wild one, covered the 1.5 point spread over 42.5 cashes. Another game started, another injury to a running back, shove it.
Yeah, I don't like talking about it, but back-to-back injury conversations. Derrick Henry left the game with a concussion. Good news, he's not in the concussion protocol. He had 21 carries, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Vrabel did say he's looking good. He's looking to play in Miami. Now the guy behind him, Tyjae Spears, had a lot of touches when Henry was out. This play next week against Miami could mean that Tyjae Spears gets more passing downs and could viably be a RB2 or flex spot if you are low on running backs. I don't hate that start this week, given that it's going to be Miami's going to put up points and they're going to be playing a lot of passing downs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think keeping it on the running back situation, but going to the Colts, Zach Moss assumes RB1 with JT going down. Based on the matchup, based on Moss's usage and how good he's been, he was an auto start, in my opinion. Only 6.7 fantasy points, so not ideal there. RB27, I believe, on the week. But the good, played 94% of snaps. Find me another running back in the NFL right now playing 94% of snaps. Maybe not named Rashad, but like, is there another running back that's playing 94% of snaps in the NFL? Probably not. So you like that 3 targets, 2 catches. Usage will obviously be there. Colts are actually firmly in the playoff race. So there's no reason to believe that Moss won't get used like this. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and then you get the Raiders in the championship game in week 17 if you get there. So again, another guy with pretty enticing schedule. Pass catchers for the Colts to show.
Well, it would have been Moss if that throw was thrown a little bit better, and we would not be talking about Moss with just his snap count, right? It was a bad throw. It was easy touchdown. It was right there. Minshew got to do better than that. But, and by the way, it's 87% for Rashad. He's not in the 94 range.
Damn, Moss over Chad, even crazy.
Yeah. So my main thing here is Michael Pittman. I remember talking about him early on. There's been some hits and there's been some misses as far as like, I remember saying, you got to go get Jahan Dotson. Like things are looking good as far as, but they just are a failure as far as a structure goes. They're going with the Chiefs offensive style, which we realized later on. And at that point, it was all abort mission for the wide receivers. But there's one wide receiver, Michael Pittman, dude, top 10 wide receiver this year, most catches by any Colt. There's no exclusion for Marvin Harrison here. This is any Colt in the first 4 seasons as a Colt. And that's 8 games with 11 or more targets for him. That's an auto start. And, and he had 16 targets last game. So it's just looking better and better. Minshew is developing better chemistry. I was hoping we got to see more Alec Pierce. Maybe there would have been a little bit of that downfield if we still had our, Richardson as our starter. But right now, it's just set it and forget it. Michael Pittman.
Pierce did have a good game, though. Finally, I think first game of his career where he actually flashed and they used him the right way. So nice little deep ball threat that he was. But no, Michael Pittman, way too early candidate for a player that's going to continue to be underappreciated for the length of his career and is going to be like a Mike Evans 2.0. So you heard it here first. In 7 years, we're going to be like, do we really want Michael Pittman? And he's going to be putting up another 1,000-yard season. So great story there for him if you drafted him. Okay, this next game, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I don't have anybody fantasy relevant in the Chargers Patriots. So when I went back to watch this game, the first thing I did was I went on ESPN. I clicked on the ESPN Gamecast. I thought the screen wasn't loading. I was like, oh, okay, there's a glitch in the game. There's no way it was 6-0. There's no way that was the final score. When they just stop recording stats. And I'm like, I think that's what happened. I'm going to come back to this game. Legit thought that went through my mind. I was like 6-0. I remember seeing flashes of Herbert throwing the football. I was like, there's no way this was the final score, right? Fast forward, and that was the final score. But here's the craziest thing. The team that scored 6 points covered the spread. They were 4.5-point favorites, and they won the game 6-0. The Jaguars beat the Patriots. Under 38.5 was the freest bet of the century, probably. Did one of you guys have fantasy relevance and want to kick us off here? Because I don't know how in the world the Chargers, one, scored 6 points, and two, the Chargers have one of the worst defenses in the league. I'm so sorry to the person that tweeted at me and I said start Bailey Zappi over Matt Stafford because I thought that the Chargers defense was awful, but they pitched a shutout. So somebody lead the way in this game, and what the hell happened? Nobody wants to because it's
I got nothing. I don't have any stock. I know Shobit's got some Demario Douglas in there, so maybe you can.
Sure, I'll take it. Yeah, so Demario Douglas has been a shining star on this team outside of Stevenson, right? He's been a guy that I've been starting and has been getting targets. He did not play last week, so I obviously didn't start him. Thursday night football is 2 days away, and he's probably not going to play either. So if you are looking for anybody to pick up in this team outside of Ezekiel Elliott that we'll talk about, Devontae Parker could be a waiver wire target. He had 9 targets last game. Also, although only saw 4 catches, Steelers are terrible against the wide receivers. Their defense is not good against wide receivers. So I feel like Devontae Parker can sneak a way to get into a touchdown. So him and Zeke are the only 2 guys that I would consider. And also the Patriots defense are the only 3 plays for fantasy this week for me.
Yeah, all good points. Sweeker, you got something to say?
No, I have no words, so I'm still on the no words thing.
No, but with their 6-0 loss to the Chargers, the Patriots are now the first team since 1938 to lose in 3 straight games where they have held their opponent to 10 points or less.
Wow.
That's just sad. That was just sad. Can you imagine walking into the locker room and looking at the defensive captain? Like, what do you even say? You fire everybody. You get rid of the offense. That's what you do. And that's probably what's going to happen here besides Demario Douglas. And I don't even know what's going to happen in the running back situation, but and Bourne is looking a little promising, but other than that, like there's no reason to have any stock in any of these players. But Shobit, something interesting I've noted over the last couple of weeks is like you've been starting some rando ass players.
And it's been working.
I wouldn't even think of ever playing them. And it's not that it's working, it's hitting because you get those touchdowns. You're getting those touchdowns, but there's nothing after that. It's like one play game.
I'll tell you all those players. I'll tell you those players. No, I'm sorry. It started with Trent Irwin. It was, and then it went to Jaden Reed. Trent Irwin had like 2 catches, and one of them were a touchdown.
The first catch was a touchdown. Yeah.
Right. And then Demario Douglas, and then Jaden Reed. Those 3 guys I've been putting in, and it's Jefferson's been out. But the thing is, I haven't been winning games. I've only won 1 game out of those 3 games still. So it's just it's been a bloodbath.
It's all right. It's okay. It's gonna look all pretty for you soon. But the whole point I'm making with that is Devontae Parker is probably going to be one of those players, and his best case scenario is a touchdown and like 4 catches. Because listen, I was probably one of the biggest Devontae Parker fans ever. As it keeps like going back to the Dolphins stuff, but it's really not like that. It's just he was such a stud early on in his career. We saw what he did in college, and I was all over this guy for the early on part of his career. But it's just too many injuries, too much failure. He's not young like the guys you just mentioned, so I don't see that explosiveness anymore. So maybe some safety net 3rd downs here and there, and maybe a random touchdown. But I'm not expecting like a automatic start. Let's get 10 targets to Devontae Parker type of thing if that's what you're kind of leaning towards.
Yeah, a team that scored 0 points that has lost 3 straight games by allowing 10 points. Not a lot of, conviction in starting an offensive player for that team, right? Only guy we want to highlight, Stevenson got hurt. High ankle sprain is what it looks like. Probably going to miss 3 to 4 weeks, most likely. And so enter Ezekiel Elliott back to relevance. Whether you want to play that card, by all means, if you're desperate, he's starting. He's the RB1 on that team. So you can certainly start him if you're desperate. But that offense, again, has proven time and time again that Stevenson's value came from catching the ball. So if Zeke's going to be their 3rd down back, sure. But I think he's old enough to where he's not going to be a 3-down guy. They're probably going to use, who was it? JJ Taylor or something? The Taylor guy. There was another guy that was Patrick Taylor.
Is it JaMychal Hasty that they picked up from
Hasty.
Practice squad? Okay. So he's there too. But I actually think that Ezekiel needs to be a top waiver wire pickup this week, man. He's what, in his late 30s. They have no reason.
Not late 30s. He wouldn't be in the NFL. Late 20s.
I mean, sorry, early 30s. But there's no reason to hold him back. Like this is it's probably he's not going to be there for a long time. You just you just use.
He's probably holding himself back more than anything, bro. He's hit that age cliff where I just don't think he's going to be. You could unleash him, but I think unleashing Zeke at age 27 or 28, what he is now, is probably like watching AJ Dillon run the football now. So
I mean, like you can get a good ceiling from him, right? If you're getting all the touches, that's the best case scenario. If you're getting all the touches, you're the primary goal line back, and historically you are able to catch passes. We're looking at a really old Rachaad White here. That's what we're looking at. So, I mean, it's the same type of demographics we're going with. Like the bigger back that's going to be there for blocking, can catch passes, can run his ass off. For that reason, like if you're, I'm not saying he's an auto start, but I think he is a good waiver pick for sure, because look at us. Like I started Singletary for the last 3 weeks, and that train seems to have jumped off a cliff real quick. So if I could get my hands on another one of those guys, now that the bye weeks aren't really a concern, I'm not going to go all over it, but I'm also not holding back on the waiver picks anymore. If I've had those number one waiver picks, these are the moments you go after the Tajay Sharps, and these are the moments you go after the Ezekiel Elliott's, because this is it. It's the playoffs. And now you shouldn't be sitting there like, oh, let me hold on to my number one waiver pick and see if something happens, because that may never happen and you may lose out on a starting running back. So I agree with both you guys. I'm not expecting like a 30-point outburst, but I think there's a nice 10-point floor there. And that's kind of promising in a lot of like, flex considerations.
Yeah, I think, again, you said it. There's 1 week till playoffs, so you know how your roster is shaking out. If you see a world where Zeke enters your starting rotation, yeah, you absolutely pick him up. But if you don't, then you kind of don't. Otherwise, maybe you could pick him up and just prevent other people from grabbing him. That's the other thing. My God, we spent so long talking about a 6-0 fucking football game. Next game on the board, the Saints and the Lions. Saints lose this game at home 33-28. Detroit covers the spread 3.5 points over 48.5. Taysom Hill, I have Trey McBride owner, week 14 bye. Taysom Hill is a free agent. Derek Carr is hurt. They have nobody else. Taysom Hill will throw. Taysom Hill will run. Taysom Hill will catch. Taysom Hill will coach. Taysom Hill will do a lot of things that are fantasy relevant. This schedule is insane. He's tight end 7 on the season. He gets Carolina. He gets the Giants. He gets the Rams. And then he gets Tampa Bay. I don't know when Derek Carr's coming back. He's in concussion protocol and he hurt his ribs. That's not good. So if Winston's in there, I think the goal is going to be, if playoffs are still a race, how can we make sure Winston doesn't ruin the game for us as many times as possible? We get the ball out of his hands, which means we put the ball in Taysom Hill's hands. Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Sky, stock through the roof. But right now, Taysom Hill, 66% rostered, tight end 7 on the season. I think you go pick him up, and I'm picking him up, and I'm probably going to play him next week.
Yeah, valid points. Another thing, it's like I'm missing out on the whole tight end experience because I have a lot of good tight ends that haven't gotten hurt, thankfully. And McBride has come in as a number 2 where I haven't had a number 2, so haven't really had to think. But Taysom Hill, I didn't even think about this, honestly, but that's a solid point, because these are the weeks when people really need him and he's like dropping 31 points out of nowhere and you're just ripping your hair out if you're facing him. So if you're looking at these weird situations where you're still, at this time, you haven't found a, Laporta or a McBride somewhere in the waiver wire, then it's a no questions asked, everything setting up for success here. Not to elongate this much further, and I don't have really much to say on this game, because you're not really going to be making changes besides the whole Taysom Hill thing. So, everything as regularly scheduled program says, you don't really change much here.
Yeah. One thing that has been unfortunate is for Jahmyr Gibbs holders, back-to-back, backseat role that we saw in the beginning of the year, and it's hard to trust him moving forward. Montgomery has 18 carries to Gibbs 8. And the thing about it is you can't not start both of these guys. Like if you have Gibbs, you have to start him. They're playing against the Bears, where it's most likely going to be Montgomery has a solid day. They're not going to be
revenge game.
Yeah, Montgomery revenge game. Exactly. Right. So Gibbs is probably going to have like that, 6 points, 7 points game. You hope that he gets into the end zone, but at this point, you just keep starting him and hope for the best. Hope he gets those passing downs, but nothing to do there at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Jets were hosting the Falcons in New York, 13-8. Sounds like a baseball game. Falcons win this game in New York, cover the 2.5 point spread. Over does not hit because it was 13-8, under 34.5 cashes. Let's kick us off here. This game was a fantasy wasteland. Everybody that you wanted to do well didn't do well. The best player in this game was Xavier Gibson, who caught the ball 5 times for 77 yards. I think the best news to come out of this game, guys, is the week I had to record the podcast by myself, I believe. I was sitting here just completely perplexed at the thought of Tim Boyle being a starting NFL quarterback. Well, 4 weeks later, the NFL finally caught up to me and said, wait, there's no reason this guy should be in the NFL. And he got cut today. So Tim Boyle is no longer on the Jets. That's probably the biggest news I can take away from this game. Shishot, what did you see here?
Well, I can one up your Tim Boyle experience by bringing in the Ritter experience. Where how long are we going to strap onto this bumpy ass roller coaster ride that you wake up in the morning and you got bruises everywhere and you're wondering if that ride was even worth it in the first place? But Drake London, man, like we've seen what he can do. He had one catch all game. Ritter threw for less yards than Tim Boyle. I don't care if you're a run first offense. You never throw less yards than Tim Boyle, who doesn't have a job anymore. And the only other focus here is Breece Hall, man. Like a huge high commodity early in the season. I wanted to go out and trade for him. I got a lot of declines. God was watching out for me early on. But, he's got a nice little floor type of thing going on with 11.62 fantasy points. And here I was like trying to trade everything away to go get him. There was a time where I was thinking about a Tyreek Hill for a Breece Hall and some other dude that comes and goes situation. And meanwhile, James Cook was sitting on my bench most of the year and he's averaging 11.32. So it's like, I'm looking at one guy with such high confidence and this other guy who I'm like, I got him a late round flyer. Glad I got him a little early, but we're getting the same results here. So, I think there's a lot of upside coming from Breece Hall. I know we've been saying this all year, but the schedule really opens up a little bit. I forget what the exact reason was. I was excited about the schedule. Oh, I think it's because the games are going to be closer than we think. There's going to be a lot more running for the Jets. Basically, that's what it comes down to. Because I don't know who the passer is going to be, and I don't know how accurate they're going to get at the running back. So I think it's going to be close games, and I think that's going to benefit the run game a little bit more than usual.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of for me, like there's nothing new to add to this except for Algier, who was kind of looking like getting some kind of carries here and there, kind of being fantasy relevant. He's not really fantasy relevant at this point. Bijan Robinson seeing 75% of snaps, and the Falcons have favorable run matchups coming up: Bucs, Panthers, Colts, and Bears. I think that Bijan Robinson will continue to get his. He didn't have such a great game this week, but I think that will change, and we'll see Bijan Robinson potentially being a winner this year.
The Steel City, the Steelers were hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals and Kyler come into this game and win 24-10 on the road, cover the 6.5 point dog spread under 40.5 cashes. I'll kick us off here. Trey McBride, 8 for 89 and a touchdown, 9 targets, which was 3 times as high as the next highest target getter, Dortch and Brown, with 3 targets each. Tight end 10 on the season, tight end 7 or better in 4 of the last 6 weeks. So he's done really, really well. 3 of those were top 3 tight end finishes, and he gets Chicago and Philadelphia in week 16 and 17. So really, really favorable schedule there. I know we were debating it early in the season, midway through the season. McBride looks like an awesome home run pickup if you picked him up then, and now you're starting him because you're sitting and forgetting. This week, obviously the bye. This is why I'm pivoting to Taysom Hill. Other guys you could maybe start if you're, in the Trey McBride buy scenario is Cole Kmet was out there. I was debating that. Not amazing, not sexy, but I think at this point, all the good guys are probably already rostered. Maybe if you're in a league where Dallas Goedert got dropped, there's a chance he plays this week. So that's another guy to look out for if you're a McBride owner. But otherwise, after this week, for the rest of the year, McBride set and forget it. And he's probably going to be on a lot of championship teams. Shishot, you may want to talk about McBride more too.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask. So I have McBride, I have DeAndre Swift, I have Hopkins, and I have Thielen. Thielen and Hopkins are kind of on this hit or miss, slight decline situation. Thielen more than Hopkins. I'm not confident starting either one, so this is like a flex type of situation. I already have Hockenson, right, sitting at tight end. Would you start McBride over Thielen or Hopkins, and would you even consider starting him over DeAndre Swift at the flex?
I would start him over both those receivers. Swift, it just depends. Schedule, matchup probably depends, but yes, I'm leaning more yes than no. Swift's work has trended down. He's been hobbled. Gainwell's getting a lot more passing work for some reason.
There is no such thing as goal line work because it's all hurts, right?
And it's all hurts. Exactly. So it's like if it's not a fully running game, like the game script isn't we're running the football, Swift's a commodity. Like he's basically just something that they can choose to use whether they want to or not. McBride, they have no choice. Hollywood Brown, their best player, we thought, is dealing with that heel or toe injury or something, and he only saw 3 targets. So I think right now it's McBride or bust. So absolutely.
Yeah. For me, the difficult part is deciding McBride over Hopkins. It's not Swift or Thielen. Swift is kind of dealing with an injury. Thielen took a backseat this last 2 weeks. So Hopkins could be you could potentially be okay with starting Hopkins over McBride, depending on the matchup. I forget who they play, but I think that's one of those games where they could be behind and they will have to put up points, and Hopkins could end up being productive fantasy-wise this week as well.
What about the Steelers side, Shove It?
Yeah, dude, being a Steelers fan has just been atrocious. You know, one week they look really good, one week they look really bad. What does that mean? They're average as fuck. You know,
When
that's
was
just
this
what
really
it-
good game? I'm trying to remember that one.
that week that we let go of Matt Canada and the offense looked
That's
really
true.
good.
Who was the
Jalen
defense that
Warren,
they played against that week?
shit. I don't. You know what? That's weird. I don't even remember right now. But I just
remember.
know that I'm still recovering from the Cardinals loss that we had, where the offense looked terrible. Kenny Pickett got hurt, and the biggest thing of note is this Jalen Warren versus Najee Harris. Jalen Warren, who's been a guy that we know that should get a start, he took a backseat in snap count. Najee Harris is set up as a primary back. Now the issue is Najee Harris is designated as questionable. He's dealing with a knee injury, so if Najee does not play Thursday night in 2 days, look at the news, then Warren is a full send starter on fantasy teams. Did you look up who the Steelers played?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
you
it's not bad who they played. They played the Bengals, but here's the funny part. You said that you said this was a week they went off or they had a good game or something, and they scored 16 points. They won 16-10 was the final score. I know they got a lot of yards. Kenny Pickett had 278 passing
Over
yards. and shit.
400, right?
Yeah,
Over
but
400
to
yards.
see the final score be 16-10 and be like, dude, the offense was going. They were clicking, man. It's just it's perspective because how shitty they were all season. They finally moved the ball. Scoring did not actually increase. 16 is probably less than their season average, but the product that you were watching for 16 minutes felt a lot better. That's why it sticks in your head probably that way. But no, you're right. I think this game sucked to me because I thought Najee and Warren were both auto starts. I thought both running backs were probably going to have a good game, and it was the opposite. I wasn't expecting the Cardinals to win this game, let alone go up by 2 scores and make the Steelers have to be one-dimensional. Doesn't help that, obviously, like you mentioned, Pickett's out and Trubisky's not very much better. So it's just kind of a bad situation for the offense as a whole. Even if they change their, Matt Canada's not there anymore, like, what happens next week? Is it Trubisky? Do they go Rudolph? Are there talks that Rudolph would start over Trubisky or no?
No, it's going to be Trubisky, but it's just a weird situation because they have like 2 offensive coordinators. You really don't know who's really making the calls there. They're
still
still
got 2 plays coming into the headset, and the guy's quarterback has to decide which one he likes better.
Has to decide. And Trubisky is just one of those guys that he's big risk taker, and you never know what you're going to get with Trubisky. But the Patriots are not a great team either. We're playing against Billy Zappi. They should win this game,
dude. Just keep reminding yourself of that stat you told the pod. The Patriots in the last 3 games have lost every game, and they haven't allowed more than 10 points in any single game, right? So if you can't beat a team like that, 7-5, 7-6, whatever you are, it's just fraudulent at that point,
I have a serious thought that the Patriots are like literally just losing games on purpose. So I think they're going to find a way to purposefully lose this game too. I'd just go smash on the Steelers defense this game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. After Bailey Zappi couldn't throw the football against the Chargers, you're right. I mean, Bill Belichick, we can't put it past him. There's been too many gates for his Super Bowl wins and stuff. There's too many the conspiracy things going on that you're right. There's nothing that leads me to believe that he's not just purposely tanking. A team that isn't purposely tanking, they're just bad. The Commanders played at home against the Dolphins and they got throttled 45-15. Dolphins offense was clicking. They won the game. They covered the spread 8.5 points. They almost hit the over themselves 49.5. Man, Devon Achane, I just kept wanting to say it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a Fugazi. It's fucking fake, but it's not. It's not fake at all. It's just not fake at all. Shove it.
Yeah, he's right back to where he's left off. 11 carries, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mostert's taking a back seat because of Achane doing so well. Mostert did get a touchdown, but
backseat for Mostert with 16 touchdowns on the season. I'll take that backseat all day long.
Well, this game.
Yeah. Didn't he still get in the end zone this game or no?
He did.
That's what he just said.
No, Mostert did too, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So his backseat is still scoring a touchdown. Is what I'm saying. Anyways, continue.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yes. I mean, they put up 45 points, and the running backs get a lot of carries. So it was all Achane sort of in the second half. Tua also had a very efficient game, 18 passes on 24 attempts, 2 touchdowns. But next up is Tennessee, so I think that kind of degresses. I think that they're going to run the ball heavy against Tennessee, and Tua probably doesn't have as great of a fantasy day. So if I had other options, I would probably look elsewhere outside of Tua.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, at least for the next couple of games. There's just one thing I got to point out. There was this attending that I spoke with early last year when I was big on the whole. I was like, Dolphins Chargers AFC Championship game, he was so strong about his past influence of the Dolphins being bad that he was blinded to what some of the people were seeing, what was happening in Miami, right? So it just, and the main point there was that the people were automatically thinking the Chargers were a better option at making the AFC Championship game than the Dolphins ever were, because the Herb bandwagon was pretty next level. And a year later, it's pretty silent. I just walked by that room and I'm like, hey, did you watch the game yesterday? He's like, yeah, I saw it. So anyways, yeah, it's just there's a couple of things that you kind of like hone towards as your goals for the year or your focus point of the year, and got that spark from the Dolphins last year. And kind of saw after week 1 Tyreek, I remember telling you guys, I was like, dude, if I had the opportunity, I'd probably draft this guy number 1 overall. I don't even care what happens to anybody else before this. And then with our segment about the coaching and all that stuff, I saw Mike McDaniels and I was like, dude, love this guy. Can't wait to see him be coach of the year, possibly, or whatever the heck that was. So all those things coming together, it's just one of those really good feelings. You kind of feel like you just like watch this whole team develop, while like some players or some people had like different opinions on things. And you're like, no, dude, this is what's going to happen here. But to my demise, having Mostert most of the year, it's been a nice 8th round fill in, making things go. Probably a good reason why a lot of the teams that are in the top 3 all have Mostert on their team. So that being said, no surprise on any of this information. It's just something I wanted to bring up in case this specific person is listening. Maybe you want to keep an open mind and see what happens and listen to the Only Playbook.
Bam.
Yeah. There's something I want to add about this that I've kind of been thinking about, like in terms of Mike Tomlin, right? Like Mike Tomlin's a great coach, don't get me wrong, but if we could get a guy like Mike McDaniels, who's like an offensive guru, someone in the Shanahan system, like I feel like that would be like such a great thing for the Steelers, but that's so far in between that like you just
hold on. You are living in a really, really unnecessary, stressful level of your Steelers fandom. It just what are you saying? You have probably one of the greatest
top
coaches,
5 best coaches in the league, best all time.
Top 3.
But in terms of like innovation and where the game is headed,
of course.
Like
get him an offensive coordinator. Then you can get him an offensive coordinator. But I agree with what you're saying. The Canada offense was disgusting. It was like 1975, right? It was 1975, and this is what he thinks. Like, just because Tomlin is a defensive-minded head coach doesn't mean you need to come in here and be a compliment to him playing defense first. And I think that's what, when you're the alpha, that's what the offensive coordinator will come in and do. Tomlin demands that locker room, right? It's his team. So his defense is always going to come to play. So you need to find somebody, preferably, I'm not going to say it, you need to find somebody who is a bro of Mike Tomlin, who's going to run the offense as a bro. It's going to demand that same level of bro respect to where he can call the offense the way he wants to and still get that respect from Tomlin. Because again, until they keep hiring these inferior coaches, they're all going to be like, yo, this is a defensive-minded team, defensive-minded head coach. We're just going to play complimentary football. Oh, and also because our quarterback's not good, so we only can play complimentary football. I think that's the problem. So go get a offensive-minded offensive coordinator, dude, and pair that with Mike Tomlin's freaking defensive mastermind. The Steelers could throw maybe any of us at quarterback and be good. I don't know.
Fair. Wanted to know your thoughts on this. It's been bugging me for a while, so yeah, it's good to know.
Sorry, this is what we're here for. Let it out. Support system, baby.
You know what bugs me, guys? What bugs me is that the NFL continues to give quarterbacks the MVP trophy. Only quarterbacks, and it's bullshit, because if you're looking at this season, this is a prime season where you can literally look at another position and be like, what has been most valuable to the team? Who has been most valuable? And again, I'm going to hammer this. He's not going to win. But Tyreek Hill right now, actually, I put 2,000 on here. He's 2,500 on DraftKings. It's stupid. But if he's not going to win that, right now, I will clip this. Tyreek Hill, 1,000%, barring an injury, 1,000% will win Offensive Player of the Year. There's no doubt in my mind. The next closest race is Christian McCaffrey, who's great. He's fantastic. But CMC is not doing anything that somebody else hasn't done before. Tyreek Hill might break the receiving record, and he's going to play an extra game, so there's a good chance he's going to break it. Those odds after next week will probably be like minus 400, minus 500, something you cannot take. Right now at minus 175, it's juicy, but I promise you, it is absolutely free. Like, there's nobody else that's going to win this. If you are a gambler, minus 175, juicy, but absolutely free. Tyreek Hill is still there. You slam it. He's gonna win Offensive Player of the Year. There's nobody else right now that it's even an argument. And yeah, like I don't understand it. The line does not make sense, but that's all I have in that game. Amazing if you're a Tyreek Hill owner. Oh, I wanted to add real quick on the Tyreek Hill thing. I talked about it. You're a Tyreek Hill owner and you're the best team in our league. Jake's a Tyreek Hill owner. He's the best team in that league. Like the Tyreek Hill consistency, I feel like is going to be a lot of league winning because like you said, Shishot, I don't know that everybody had that perception of I'm drafting Tyreek Hill 1. He fell in our league to 7. He fell in the other league to 6, right? So like there are a lot of teams that lucked with Tyreek Hill. And then I'm thinking about how you got CD Lamb on the back end. And it's because of me, because I took Devontae Adams and I'm like, okay, there's no world where I can let you have Hill and Adams. I was like, I can't have you have Hill and Adams. Like the season's over from the get-go. So I was like, no, I want Adams. And then you get CD Lamb and like CD Lamb's a god. So that stack, the other playoff roster in my league also has CD Lamb. So CD Lamb, another big league winner, Hill, another big league winner, but
dude, Hill owner was last place in our league for like the last 4 weeks until just the most recent week. Now he's second last. Shout out to Paul.
Yeah.
It'd be like that sometimes.
It'd be like that. Not all Hill owners can win, I guess. The Texans, man, they beat the Broncos at home. They're 7-5, 22-17 final score, covered the 3.5-point spread, under 47.5 cashes. Shove it. Another game, another injury. I don't know why you kept choosing the injury guys to talk about. But
it's important. It's important. We got to talk about it. Tank Dell, fractured fibula, which sounds freaking terrible. He's probably done for the fantasy season, also regular season as well. But because of that, Nico Collins sees 12 targets, finishes with 9 receptions, 191 yards, add a touchdown to that as well. Stroud had a mediocre day, 16.06 fantasy points. Next up are the Jets. So I have a question for you guys. Would you guys rather start Justin Fields over against the Lions or Stroud against the Jets?
I start Fields. I'm full fade Lions, man. Have you seen this defense? They're awful.
Dude, I'm not starting anybody against the Jets defense.
Yeah.
Like, very little amount of people I would start against. And Stroud, as well as he's doing, we've seen people just torture the Lions the last couple of weeks, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. And the main reason they don't get tortured is because there's pressure from the defensive ends. And with a player like Fields, that doesn't really matter because he can outrun all of your defensive ends. So I see a lot of points happening, at least 20 points for Fields baseline minimum.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. Starting Fields over Stroud, but
I actually put in a waiver claim for Fields because he's a free agent in another league. We'll see who I get to start because I've been starting Kyler Murray in all 3 leagues last week, and now he's out. So I got to find a replacement real quick. So on the note of receivers, Noah Brown, he's one of those very polarizing players in that if he catches a ball, he's big enough to run over people and he's fast enough to run past people. And he's shown us that he can do that when he gets the opportunity. However, he doesn't get as much opportunity because Tank Dell and Collins have been vacuums. And now with Tank Dell gone, that's about 9 to 11 targets a game. That's got to go somewhere. And, we're talking about CJ Stroud here. We're not talking about check down city, whatever, right? So the ball's going past the 15-yard line at least 10 to 15 times a game. It's going to happen, and the balls are going to be caught. I guess I got to look at the schedule a little bit more in depth to see who Nico Collins is guarded by and where has he been playing when these other two players are not on the field. Is he playing slot in those situations? But all that matters in all this just to say that Noah Brown cannot be ignored. I know we talked about Ezekiel Elliott on the free agency, but this is another player you just can't ignore. We've seen the surge of Stroud, and the balls are going to go, the balls are going to get caught, and there's going to be competitive games because the defense is still not phenomenal. So I see points being had, and we've seen upside up to like plus 20 plus points, 24 points or whatever it was. These are not players you want to leave on the free agency for somebody else to have that has a shittier team. It's going to plug and play against you in free agency, and you're going to watch 30 points dropped by Noah Brown because you didn't want to put him on your team instead.
Yeah, absolutely. The offense is all about passing. So you're trying to capture as many pass catchers as you can. Tank Dell, the largest target share on the team, is now gone. So that's going to get spread to, like you said, Noah Brown. I think Dalton Schultz, when he was healthy, when he was playing, he was a serviceable tight end for them. And he's a good player. So I think he also becomes consideration for tight end position as well. But running backs for the Houston Texans, very unfortunate as a Singletary owner, wanted to believe that because he played well, he deserved to play. But they didn't think so. They don't reward people that play well. They said, Pierce, you're back. you're going to touch the ball more than Singletary. What sucks is Singletary was 46% of the snaps. Pierce was only 38%, but Pierce ran the ball 15 times to Singletary's 8, and Pierce got every single goal line carry. That's pretty much the biggest stat that you need to know anytime they're about to score. It's Pierce in the game. So it's unfortunate. I already made the decision and dropped Singletary in my other league because I don't really have time to play and mess around. I have to win next week or I'm not in the playoffs, and I'm not going to start Singletary in a split share. So he's gone. So I've already dropped him. That's how quick the NFL happens in especially in fantasy football. So one week you're getting 25 points and you look like you're going to be the starter. The next week you're not the starter and you're barely on the field. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers, battle of the division, ugly division. Only good thing about this game is that Mike Evans did another thing. He crossed the 1,000 mark for the 10th consecutive season, the only receiver to ever do that. Shovit, I know you wanted to talk about it. I didn't want to steal your thunder because I know you want to talk a lot about Mike Evans because you believed in Mike Evans all season. I think he was your sleeper pick of the year. If we can rewind back to the first episode, I'm pretty sure the one guy you said we should draft was Mike Evans. So talk to me about all of that coming full circle and fruition for you.
That's exactly the opposite of what happened. Unfortunately, I faded Mike Evans in the beginning of the year. I think he was like, yeah, I should have drafted him. I didn't. And he almost lost me this week and potential playoff opportunities after that 75-yard touchdown catch and run. Like you said, finished the day with 7 receptions, 162 yards, 1,000-yard season, which, by the way, is the most with Randy Moss as the second with 5 straight seasons in his first 5 years in the NFL. He's done this for a decade now. Hall of Famer. I messed up. But we need to do like a show where we like have like lessons learned.
I love that.
The 2014 season and like number 1, Mike Evans.
Number 1, Mike Evans. Lesson 1.
Don't fade Mike Evans.
And number 2, Chad Ward football hands. Let's put that one right there after number 1. He's RB6. RB fucking 6.
A trade up for Andrews.
I don't even need to say anything else. Honestly, just rewind back to week 6. Just take that same clip and all those reasons why I said you must have this man. Literally all of those. Bell cow, blocking running back being there on third downs. There's nobody competing. And I got a little scared because Chase Edmonds popped out of nowhere. It's like, forgot this man played football. And I was like, damn, every time in the past where Chase Edmonds comes in, he takes third down work and he takes passing work. That's not happening anymore. So that gives me even more reassurance that he's going to be staying out there longer. I told you guys earlier, 87% snap share. I've been debating with myself, putting him in the flex, putting him at RB2, not letting him play a couple weeks to teach him a little bit of lesson. Whatever it is, I'm not doing that anymore. Mostert's going to be riding my bench, and we're going to have to put – there's just no question of that. It's an auto start. We're talking about RB6. How did this happen? I know, but I also don't know because there's belief that you want things to happen, but then there's reality behind it. But this one, there was too many pieces that all just fit. And it was the only player in all of preseason that I put on my Instagram or social media. And I was like, you got to have this guy on your team. Like, that's it. You just got to have him. So that worked out really well for me. A lot of other things didn't. But this one has been a smash, and he just needs to stay healthy. And I think I can go along if he just stays healthy.
Yeah, definitely one of the most value picks in probably all of fantasy football. One guy we're going to talk about, Adam Thielen trending down. It's because Jonathan Mingo is trending up. What's weird is nothing is new for this guy in terms of being on the football field. He's been playing 90% of snaps for a long time, since week 6 to be exact. 4 straight weeks with 6 targets though. So this is the first time that he's actually getting used. Back-to-back weeks with 60 receiving yards. Again, first time he's really getting used, and the trends are there. Thielen trends down, Mingo trends up. They're looking to the future. Adam Thielen's 32 years old. I don't think he's coming back next year. Mingo was a rookie, 3rd-round pick, I believe. So he's obviously part of the future. So I think he is going to get used. If you're so desperate that you were a Thielen owner or you're looking for a flex play, not very many other people are probably going to catch passes for the Panthers. So Jonathan Mingo right now probably trends as a wide receiver 1 for that team, and maybe a flex consideration for you rest of the season. Dude, I did not see this game coming at all. The Rams and the Browns in the Ramsville in LA. They win this game 36-19, cover the 3.5 point spread. The over-under was 39.5. So Vegas didn't see this coming at all either. The Rams scored 36 points on their own. And let me just start out by saying I benched Puka Nacua. I'm very upset about it. Puka Nacua against the Browns defense. Cooper Kupp is back. Like Puka Nacua was hurt last week. He was on the injury report. There was no reason to believe that they were going to give this man two end arounds to Puka Nacua, who ran like a 4.6 40. Yet he was running by those three guys on that touchdown. Did you guys see how fast this man looked, by the way?
Yeah,
when he
dude,
like the
football speed is always misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ball game.
Man ran like a 4 or 6 borderline, and he was running by 3 defensive backs for the Browns. So 4 catches, 105 yards and a touchdown, 2 rushes for 34 yards. He was wide receiver 10 on the week, 21.9 fantasy points. He seems like an auto start at this point because this was the worst matchup we were going to see for the Rams offense, and it didn't matter. Next week, they play Baltimore, which is pretty scary, but then you get Washington, New Orleans, and the Giants in week 17 in the championship. All that means is puka. Shove what'd you see this game?
Yeah, Puka was lights out, man. And Browns defense, man. How about that back-to-back weeks that are not playing to their potential? I think last week was against the Broncos, and Broncos did really well against them as well. But I started the LA defense thinking that LA defense was going to do well for me, but Joe Flacco came out in his first start and looked pretty good, man. Up until like the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter, the Rams defense hadn't really done anything. They had already given up 19 points, and that was enough for Sleeper to not be, good. It wasn't until after that 6-minute mark, you had an interception, you had a sack, and you had a safety that kind of saves the day. 7 points for the Rams, but it was a good outing for Joe Flacco, in my opinion. Biggest note biggest note from this game is Amari Cooper. He left the game with a concussion, which led to Elijah Moore seeing 11 targets, 4 catches for 83 yards. Moore, if available, is a great flex play for next week. And Elijah Moore and Joe Flacco, they played with each other in New York, so they've got this connection already built. So he's probably going to take that wide receiver 1 responsibilities from Cooper if he's out.
Yeah, Joe Flacco's a big feature wide receiver 1 guy, so definitely want to consider that. Joe, what did you see this game?
Yeah, for me, I mean, the Rams side of the field, it's just standard. Everybody, you start your studs. You don't worry about starting Higbee anymore. You don't worry about...
Speaking of stud, sorry, how much of a stud is Kyren Williams?
He's a pretty big stud, dude. He's a pretty big stud.
Like, kind of insane, right? Like, I'm very shocked about Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
And
dude, I mean, the draft next year is going to be wild with how early a lot of these players are.
Rashad, first round. Rashad top 5, probably.
Shobit's going to make sure to have him. He's just not. He can't handle any more of this. But the main thing I want to note is because of this Joe Flacco thing, the upgrade as far as receiving goes. You guys got to remember, right? Like, if you have a good offensive line, the best thing for your receivers is a pocket quarterback, so you can deliver more passes more accurately, blah blah blah. I do this shit all the time. But that also means the rushing game is going to change one way or another because they were so focused on this push run game early, and things kind of changed a little bit. They didn't go with this pounding attack with Jerome Ford. I mean, because mainly the score was a little lopsided early, but Kareem Hunt ended up taking more of the carries. Now, is this because they were down early and they were just like, let this old man run and see what happens. Let's save the Jerome Ford situation for later. Or were they trying to use him because he has more experience and can create bigger plays because he's a little bit better as far as skill set goes? So that still needs to be monitored. I think Pierre's strong theory. Some people had that. That was never part of my theory. But I would still start Jerome Ford over Kareem Hunt given the choice. Don't let this kind of fool you, but keep a close eye on it.
Yeah. Do you feel comfortable starting both of them? If you're a Hunt owner, are you starting Hunt?
No.
Yeah,
no. Hunt is going to be what? Like, I'd start DeAndre Hopkins before I start Kareem Hunt.
That's fair. Game of the week, 49ers and Eagles. I thought this was going to be a closer game. I saw the line last week and was baffled, guys. The line opened up in Philadelphia as Philadelphia 3.5-point underdogs. I saw this line last week and I was like, wait, the Eagles are playing at home against the 49ers, and the Eagles are 3.5-point underdogs. This makes no sense. What does Vegas know, right? You're the home team. You're the defending NFC champion. You're 10-1 on the season, and you're 3.5-point underdogs. Well, Vegas clearly knew because the 49ers came in here and throttled the Eagles 42-19. They covered the 3.5-point spread easily, covered the 47.5 over easily. I mean, it was all 49ers. Shove it. We talked about this last week, and I talk about this a lot, where it's the Russian roulette for their offense, where, there's one guy outside of
CMC is the constant. And then of the three big names, one guy always has a bad week because there's just not enough football to go around. Well, this was the week where I was actually wrong. Everybody produced. All of them had good games. Debo had a fantastic game. Ayuk found the end zone. Kittle for a tight end was serviceable. And obviously CMC was CMC. Small note, I told you guys about how Jake traded for CMC. Oh my God, this was one of those best I told you so moments of all time. Is this freaking idiot Johnny G that traded Jake CMC? He traded Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? This man at the end of the first quarter, CMC has -1 point, screenshots the score, and it was like, man, CMC is doing really bad. Screenshots it and sends it into the group. I'm like, dude, you call yourself a football fan and you're gonna send me screenshots in the first quarter? And I texted Jake and I was like, I guarantee you this isn't aging well. And then lo and behold, CMC ends up putting up 20 points. And what? He scores more than Gibbs and St. Brown combined. Yeah. So take that up your butt, Johnny G. That was the stupidest trade ever. Don't ever send me screenshots after the end of the first quarter ever again.
Johnny G. What are you doing, Johnny G? Come on, get better.
Watch football, maybe. Watch football. But anyways, talk to me about the Eagles, Shovit, and how this resurgence for Devontae Smith has got you all giddy.
It does, man. Eagles back-to-back games having to come from behind, and the biggest benefactor of that has been Devontae Smith and his fantasy production, right? He caught the only passing touchdown that last game, and he almost had two in that towards the end of the game, and he couldn't get that catch, but he's been performing really well. Devontae Smith, we had a conversation, what was it, 2 weeks ago? It was about Devontae Smith, there's Zay Flowers, who should I start? You should start Devontae Smith, and you're seeing the production here. They face Dallas next week. High shooting game is what I expect. So hopefully we can have three straight weeks of over 15 points for Devontae Smith is what I am predicting.
Yeah, I think that's a solid prediction. I also think the whole everybody scoring in San Francisco, I wouldn't get too comfortable with that theory because, Purdy throws like 27 times a game max. Meanwhile, other teams are throwing 45 times a game. That's why there's not enough mouth to feed because McCaffrey's taking all the points. One small story I want to share. I was working. I didn't get to watch this game, but I ended up watching like 50% of the game because I was in a patient's room and he was coming in with a possible pulmonary embolism, but his oxygen saturation was good. So he's not like dying in need of oxygen. So I'm in the room and my team is like, hey, what are you doing? You've been in there for a long time. I was like, the dude has a pulmonary embolism. Like, I got to be in here. I got to take care of my patients. And meanwhile, we're both just sitting up there, glancing at the TV up there. So yeah, quality patient care. You can come into our hospital, you leave with at least, you may not leave on your own feet, but you'll leave with a smile on your face.
How many other people are going to doctor rooms hoping to find a companion to share a football game with? Like,
for real,
a lot of people. That's the number one place I'd go for that. So that's fantastic. You would never expect that from the doctor's office, and coming out of that would be a story I would share with everybody. I went to the doctor's office and I watched football with somebody. So that's fantastic, man. And a good game if you were obviously a 49ers fan or had any of the fantasy players in this game whatsoever. Sunday night football, one of the biggest upsets of the week, and are the Packers and Jordan Love for real? I am scared. I don't even know if I want to talk about it, but they won this game against the Chiefs 27 to 19. Chiefs lose this game in Lambeau. Green Bay covers the 5.5 point dog spread over 43.5 cashes. Rashee Rice, real quick, I'll hit it. Back-to-back weeks, double-digit points, 10.4 points this week. Back-to-back weeks with 8 catches, more than Kelsey. Back-to-back weeks with 9 targets, more than Kelsey. Back-to-back weeks averaging 85 receiving yards, more than Kelsey. Back-to-back weeks with 68 and 69% snap share. Not more than Kelsey, but that's the most he's had all season. So a lot of more than Kelsey's. And that's, to me, not a product of Rice being better than Kelsey. But for the first time in watching Kelsey, I'm looking at Kelsey and I'm like, man, all the times I wondered why he couldn't get open, like he's finally not really getting open. Like he looks a half step. It's like me watching Eckler right now. I'm like, he looks a half step slow. And I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that's just the product of the fact that he's not producing. So it makes me want to believe that. I don't know if you guys are seeing similar stuff, but what are you making out of the regression of Kelsey? If you can call it that, it's not really that, but relative to what we've seen and the increase in Rashee Rice or anybody else for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't think they trust anybody else anymore. I think Mahomes has had enough. You can kind of just tell with the way his progressions have changed. Like they just don't care for anything unless it's late in the game and they need big plays. That's when you start seeing MVS on the screen, but you don't see MVS on the screen anymore, and that's why the trust level is just not there. So you see a lot more passes to Pacheco. You see a lot more passes to closer players to the line of scrimmage, like Rashee Rice. They're not throwing Rashee Rice 15-yard corner routes. They're throwing him screen routes,
Screens.
5-yard outs, ins, confident plays that they know that he's powerful enough to move forward with the ball and get the first down. Very smart, and that gives him a lot of targets, makes him a auto flex start in this situation because of how things are going. And yeah, the whole Kelsey thing, he looks like if Hawkinson got really, really hurt and he's still trying to play through the game. That's what he looks like. You don't see this like powerful guy who's shrugging off people and zooming down the line anymore. There's something different, but who knows? I'm not going to get all Taylor Swift speculation and he's like not working out so much and shouldn't be going out on international trips and stuff like that, and maybe eating a little bit healthier and getting a little slimmer. But you know, I'll let him his gameplay speak for itself, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't want to use the Taylor Swift and I didn't want to use his age as an issue, but there's something going on there. Although, you know, he's like a guy that just kind of like he's available in those zone reads. Like he finds ways to get open and things like that. So it's not like he doesn't have to be powerful and fast and any of that kind of stuff. So maybe it's just one of those games where Packers just played a good defense and sacked Mahomes when Kelsey could have been available. But one guy that's been really good is Pacheco, who's been doing stellar with the absence of McKinnon. McKinnon dealing with a groin injury, so Pacheco finished with 19.80 points. He only his backup was CEH, and CEH was out there a couple of times, but not enough to really take away from Pacheco's production. The thing about that is McKinnon is trending to coming back next week. So I think that's going to mean finally a dip in Pacheco. You may not see these 19 points. So I think he's going to have, you know, he may not even get to the end zone, but he'll get some yards, and that's what you kind of have to bank on. And hopefully some passing downs. But I think he does regress moving forward with McKinnon back.
Yeah, definitely. If nothing, it's definitely on the third downs. Third downs is definitely a Jerick McKinnon down. Pacheco's value increased substantially with the pass catching, right? Like we said, there's a floor if he gets a touchdown, it's 10 to 12 points. But right now he's surpassing that because he's the every down back right now. CH is bad. He's awful. So I think for sure with Jet back, at least some of the third downs will go away from Pacheco. But are you guys worried about the Chiefs? The Chiefs look bad. They're not scoring points. Mahomes is a bust. He's like, you can pretty much call him that. He's, I think, QB 8 or 9 on the year, and he was drafted QB 1, 2, or 3 at worst. So he's absolutely a bust. A lot of teams that I've looked at, and I say a lot, but I'm only in 2 leagues. Both leagues I've looked at, the team that has Patrick Mahomes is not doing well because they drafted Patrick Mahomes a little too early, and he's underperforming his ADP. So are you guys worried about the Chiefs long-term heading into playoffs, Super Bowl?
Absolutely. I think that if you look at matchups and look at Vegas odds, Chiefs may not be favored when you start, looking at like who's favored in those games. And I think that there's certainly a concern, but then playoff Mahomes is going to probably change my mind as well. So it's tough to say. I think the spread's going to be a lot closer than we think. Yeah,
I mean, for me, it's more of the defense. The defense is just falling apart over the last couple of days or the weeks. That was their strong suit. Mahomes, I said it since like week 3-4. You're watching this Mahomes guy and you're like, there's something wrong. Like something's wrong with this offense. Everything just not going the way it normally goes. These magical plays are now interceptions. It's just not working. They need either really solid wide receivers and doing things downfield more because they have good enough offensive line to hold him, to give him time. So time's not the problem. So something's wrong. I am concerned for sure. If I'm watching a 49er versus Chiefs game, I'm like, dude, I don't know how Mahomes going to move the ball very well against this defense. These are the worries I never had before. I'm like, it's Mahomes. He'll figure it out. I've been saying that for the past 6 weeks. He hasn't really figured it out, but he's winning. So it's one of those situations, right? Like in our fantasy league, I'm number 1. But there's some teams out there that have players just as good as mine, if not better, and they're like 6th in the playoffs, right? So the whole point of playoffs is you just got to get there. Doesn't matter how you get there. Doesn't matter if you're the Steelers just clawing your way into the playoffs right now, and it doesn't matter if you're the Chiefs like winning games, still only have like 2-3 losses, whatever it is, 3-4, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you got to make the playoffs, and like Shobit said, in the playoffs, there's no other player actively playing right now that has dominated the playoffs as much as this guy. So we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. And that's just, we kind of have to. We, as much as we don't believe in them or see this trend of lackluster play, at the end of the day, push come to shove, mano y mano, you take Patrick Mahomes over anybody else.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Mahomes, obviously, and then the defense outside of the last 2 weeks has been great. They've been they've been the rock. They've been the rock for the season. So recency bias is a little bit, the injuries and the recency bias. And again, you still have 4 weeks before playoffs start, so they could get healthier by playoff time and be a different team. Obviously, riding high on their defense, but it's not the same offense going into the playoffs as it's been in the past, where it's like, my God, this team's going to come out and dominate you with 30 plus points for sure. So you're going to have to score, hey, let's give Patrick Mahomes the ball with 13 seconds left. Right now, if you give him the ball with 13 seconds left, who the hell is he going to throw the ball to? They're just going to drop it. So and not the same situation.
Real quick, we didn't talk about Jordan Love and the Packers. And Jordan Love and the Packers has been playing really well. I didn't think that this was the game that we would see Jordan Love play well. I thought it was going to be after the Chiefs because he's got good matchups. But the fact that he did it against the Chiefs, solid performance. And I've been talking about injuries. I need to talk about injuries again. Christian Watson dealing with a hamstring injury. I think that helps Reed. I think that when you have Reed and Dobbs, Reed took a backseat when Watson came back. Watson was getting all those touchdowns and targets. But now if Watson isn't there, the guy that I am trying to target, the receiver I'm trying to get is Reed. If he's in a free agency or if he's in the bench, you can consider starting him now.
Those are my 2 quarterbacks I have on the waiver wire right now. I'm number 1 waivers going towards Jordan Love for this week, and number 2 is going for Fields. Which one would you have more?
Those to me are matchup based, so I don't know. Yeah,
it's just for this week, because after this week, either Kyler comes back or Lamar comes back.
Who does Love play? I don't know who the Packers play this week, but I love
it's somebody. It's so easy. It's like the 4th ranked defense. I forget who it is, but
I'd be smashing Fields. Detroit Lions, the Lions defense is so bad. They're so bad, and their offense is really good. So just a script for good quarterback fantasy day. Let's end the rundown, guys, with Monday Night Football. Bengals and Jaguars, 34-31. Jake Browning and the Bengals come into Jacksonville and pull off the upset in overtime. Cincinnati covers the 10-point dog spread over 41.5. One last time, Shovit, start us off with the dreaded injury report.
The dreaded injury report, the biggest one, Trevor Lawrence, high ankle sprain, right? That's huge, but he looks like he's trying to put in the rehab so he can come back next week. We'll see if that actually comes into fruition. And then the big one, Christian Kirk with a groin injury. Parker Washington caught 6 catches on 6 targets, including a touchdown as a result. Something to monitor, 16% target share. So, the thing is, how good is Bethard?
Bethard.
I want to say it how it says, how it's
Beat hard. CJ Beathard.
Yeah. How do you have a last name like that anyways? But it's all going to be dependent on him, I think, as well. But Parker Washington, something to monitor, maybe could be a fruition with Ridley and Washington in the mix. I think that he could get some targets. They play the Browns next, by the way.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Parker Washington at all. I think obviously if it's CJ Beathard and it's not Lawrence, completely changes the script. But the offense is designed to run around the slot receiver. Clearly, why Parker Washington saw more targets than Ridley, saw more targets than Zay Jones immediately after he came in, after Kirk went out. So there's a reason the offense flows around the slot receiver, and he's got good hands. And right now, I don't trust Calvin Ridley all that bit. I would take Zay Jones over Calvin Ridley. He's been more consistent. Evan Ingram's been more consistent. So Parker Washington, certainly if Lawrence is back, a name to watch just from a target share perspective. But I want to talk real quickly about the NFL just being a week-to-week league. I mean, Shoba, you and I sat here and really we were truly debating, do you start Jamar Chase or A.T. Perry? I don't know that was a real debate, but you do get to places like that because if Olave didn't play, there was going to be no receiver throwing him the football. Did anybody sit here and think that Jake Browning was going to throw for 350 yards on that defense last night? No, none of us did, right? So it was a real conversation that we had, but Jake Browning put that shit to rest. He said, watch me, 11 catches for Chase, 149 and a touchdown, 76-yard touchdown catch, 26 points, wide receiver 6 on the week and 6 on the season, despite all of the lackluster quarterback play, despite all of the inconsistencies. He's still right there. He's still wide receiver 6. So no matter how he got there, no matter how up and down the season looked, he's wide receiver 6. So what sucks about that is for the people that own him on a week-to-week basis, it doesn't feel like wide receiver 6. But next year, when we look back on this year, we're like, dude, Chase was wide receiver 6 last year. He was fine. But that 6 is really, really deceiving because on a week-to-week basis, it's not the same consistency, obviously, with the back of a quarterback. But what I want to wrap this up in a bow with is your outlook as a Chase owner before this past Monday night And now after this past Monday night has to completely shift, right? I had Chase maybe a top 20 wide receiver before Browning just laid the smackdown on the Jags. And now all of a sudden you're like, if Jake Browning can throw the football, Chase is talented enough, obviously, that he's back in the top 10. So I don't know if you guys have differing thoughts on that. Rest of the season outlook for Jamar Chase. You back to feeling confident with him, Shovit? I know you own him, don't you?
No, I'm not back to feeling confident. This is Monday Night Football. People come out and do things on Monday Night Football that you just don't really know. Like it's a different kind of feeling to it. So I don't think that I gotta see another Jake Browning performance like that to be fully confident. Now, with that being said, am I going to bench Jamar Chase? No, I didn't bench him last week either. I'm still gonna start him, but I think I just need to know that I probably won't see that every single week.
Yeah,
still.
Yeah, fair points. Only thing I really got to say is if I'm a Jaguars player owner right now, I am freaking the fuck out because Travis Etienne really hasn't done too hot the last couple of weeks. I mean, there was like some sparkles here and there, and today rumbled into the end zone, but yesterday, but 11 carries for 45 yards doesn't really spark much, doesn't really excite you as a pure bona fide rusher, but he did get 4 catches to get the 34 to kind of like clean out the half point PPR, salvaging mode. But other than that, I'm a little worried. I don't know how this is going to play out. I really don't know. High ankle sprains aren't something you can just kind of like, come out of. There's serious inflammation. There's like damage to the syndesmosis. It takes so much longer because that's a avascular area that doesn't really get proper blood flow. So it takes a lot longer to come back from those than a regular foot sprain or a ankle sprain. So I'm a little concerned. I don't know. I just don't have enough evidence in this CJ character to make a, solid statement. And he only threw 10 passes, right? So like 10 passes against a defense that did not game plan for you at all and only looked at all the tendencies of Trevor Lawrence. I'm not sure if I'm sold on that being a solid 9 out of 10 completion. That could easily be oh shit, we didn't game plan for this. We had no idea he was going to go this way. Let him have this. We're going to take care of this game anyways. So just Jaguars players, there's nothing to say from a trading standpoint because all that shit's done. But if that was a scenario here, I would probably try to get rid of ETN for something that comparable, around the same category. But we'll see. We'll see if they're for real. This is their biggest test they've had in probably since they became a legit threat in the NFL. So we'll see how they overcome from this.
Yeah, I think you're probably just you're going to start Travis Etienne, and right now I think outside of Evan Ingram, you're probably not confidently starting a pass catcher. So at least not until we get more clarity on Trevor Lawrence and if he's going to come back.
That Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if you guys saw the message that came out was like Doug Peterson says it's only a high ankle sprain. I immediately thought you should. I was like, I wonder what that really means. Only a high ankle sprain? That sounds like a big freaking deal.
Yeah. Well, no, I think they probably thought that it was broken, right? Like I think the fear was probably that it was way worse because the way he reacted and everything, the way that like the guy fell on the ankle looked like that thing could have snapped. So I think maybe that was why they said only high ankle sprain, because high ankle sprain, like for fantasy, it sucks. For us, it sucks, but for them, they don't care. They're sneaking it. If they get into the playoffs, he's back for playoffs, right? That's what a high ankle sprain, at least the timetable would be. So I think that's why they're happy about it, or they're like, it's only because I think when I saw it, I thought he was out for season for sure. I thought it was a season-ending injury.
Yeah, it looked pretty bad. And I know we were pretty much done talking about stuff this week, but I just wanted to add, there's a lot of confusion between this Aaron Rodgers comeback thing. And there's a really good chance it could happen. But it's also very unlikely that's going to happen anytime soon. He may come a little bit later, but the main reason I'm even optimistic is because it's on his left foot. Okay. This is just the aiming foot. There's no torque from that foot. It's just aiming. And that's the difference between the Kirk Cousins injury and the Aaron Rodgers injury, is because Kirk Cousins injury is on the right foot. So that's where all the pressure comes from. All your power comes from there. So a lot of, I was talking with some other players like, oh, maybe Kirk Cousins will try to make a comeback. And I'm like, this isn't how this works.
Yeah, no, that's good. I honestly hadn't even realized that one was on one foot and the other. But like you said, if you're a quarterback and you're right-handed, then yeah, your plant foot being your right foot definitely is a lot more different than your left foot. But dude, I mean, I want to see it. I want to see Rodgers back. I want to see how he does. I think he probably wants to come back just so he can tell everybody that he came back and be like, look at me, told you so.
Told you not to get the vaccines.
Yeah. No anti-vax, take all the whatever he was taking. But regardless, I mean, I think that'd be insane. That'd be an awesome story. And just imagine that the Jets are, playing in week 17 or week 18, and it's to clinch, like you win and you're in.
Bro, how crazy if Rodgers is rolling out there, bro. That's must-see TV.
Yeah.
Everybody's tuning in for that
sure.
shit. Like that would be insane. So
Yeah.
I want to see it just for the sport. I think it'd be incredible. But that's it. That's it. Wild, wild week. Long week because there were no bye weeks. Week 14, the Commanders have a bye and the Cardinals have a bye. So, you name it. Brian Robinson, who's hurt, so it doesn't really matter. Don't start any of the receivers. So pretty much desolation of the Commanders don't matter. But for you, Connor, and then for the tight ends, McBride. So tight end pivot and running back
Kyler.
pivot. Oh, yeah, and Kyler. And Kyler pivot. So the Cardinals, for sure, you have to pivot. But that is it for week 13. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully, you're in the playoffs. Hopefully, you go into week 14 with some skin in the game, like you win and you're in, or you're playing against a guy who's winning and in, and you can play spoiler. So hopefully, there's some reason to continue to push forward. We are the only playbook. I'm Sweetheart. That is Shishot. That is Shovat. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful week.